Welcome back to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have our friend, colleague, Spencer Miles of Pacific Lamp and Supply out in Seattle. It's always good to chat with Spencer. We always have a good time. He's one of the OGs of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, of course, Greg. And so we're going to get to him in a second. But before we do, we got to talk about our friends at Satco, Greg. SATCO.com. That's Satco, Light Thing, Right Thing, the gangsters.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little hint at what the show is going to be about, but they actually just came out with a letter on the tariffs, saying, I know there's some concern, there's some stuff going on, but they said, at least through May 31 this year, we're not changing a damn thing. I love that. Doing the right thing by Satco. They're taking a stand. They're saying, we'll figure this thing out. We'll work with you. We'll partner with you. We're not here to scare you. Let's do something right. Satco does it.
SATCO for the gangsters, SATCO.com. Of course, do you have light bulbs in a warehouse like Satco does, like Greg Eric does, like Spencer Miles does, like Michael Colligan does? You sell them over the counter, on the internet, on Amazon, on the phone, out in the field. Nailed is your crucial shield. Go to NAILD.org to become one of the top Gs. That's right, we're the top Gs. And, of course, Greg, I'm going to be in Vegas May 4th through 8th, buddy. What about you?
I am. I know Spencer should be. You are, right, Spencer?
Oh, I'll
Light
be there.
fair, you gotta
Absolutely.
get there.
Yeah, gotta be
Come
there.
on.
Lighting industry.
Light
Absolutely.
Fair. Light Fair. Let's all go to Light Fair and hang out with the top Gs. Again, we're going back to the top Gs. And we'll hang out at Light Fair. And you got to go to nail.org now because we also have the controls course coming out. And if you want to learn about lighting controls, this is the course to go to, man. This really, Webster Marsh is putting together a heck of a curriculum. Just got off a call with him a couple minutes ago. So go to nail.org. Spencer Miles, welcome back again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
So,
We
Greg,
should get a count someday of how many it is. It might be
Something.
double digits.
It might be double digits. It might be.
Yeah.
We're going to try to talk about tariffs, okay? And,
Oh boy.
we don't have any economists on the line here, but I actually prepared for this one, Greg, because I thought, how can three lighting guys possibly talk about tariffs and make sense? You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping you make
So,
sense of it.
let me ask you a question. Why do countries have trade deficits, Greg Eric? Why does the
asking me?
United States, why does the United States have a trade deficit with China, a trade deficit with Canada, a trade deficit with Mexico? Why, Spencer? Do you know why?
I mean, I don't know why. No, I'm not an economist, but my guess would be you're saying trade, so we traded for something else, correct?
Yeah, so why do you buy more from these countries than you sell to them?
They're cheaper to make.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think everyone in the United States, if they wanted to know Donald Trump's opinion, is because everyone else is cheating, okay? Or they're not. It's not a good deal, right? So, but the reason why a country has a trade deficit is because they spend more than they save. And when a country invests or buys more stuff than they save, they have to have a trade deficit. That's how capital flows work. Okay? So it's not anybody else's fault. It's just a matter of the United States people spending more money than they save. And Chinese people save that money and then they give it back to the United States in the form of trade. That's how it works. So when we're talking about trade, now, the next point I want to make is that these tariffs that we were talking about that are in the news recently were like blanket tariffs, right?
Mm.
So we were going to tariff everything from Canada by 25%. We're going to tariff everything from here by this amount. Now, remember we've talked about, Spencer, light bulb bans? Blanket light bulb bans are dumb. You don't need to ban every single lamp in a category, right? So targeted tariffs, I think, would actually benefit the lighting industry in the United States. So not a blanket tariff on China, but if somebody was to come and say, maybe sit down with Devin Wall from Louvers and some other manufacturers that still actually make light fixtures in the United States, you could probably put together some targeted tariffs that would really benefit them, Spencer. Do you know some guys that might benefit from some very precisely targeted tariffs on Chinese goods to help America and help the lighting industry in America?
So what you're proposing is targeting competitors of U.S. companies, correct?
Yeah. So, for example, if someone is manufacturing something in the United States that is of high value, okay, and that is not low value but high value, and you want to keep that.
Okay.
I think in that particular instance, we should have targeted tariffs to protect those companies from foreign competition that might copy their IP, that might steal from them in that way, and make that fixture at a lower price and ship it into the United States already manufactured. I think we could use targeted tariffs. What do you guys think? Spencer, you first.
I think it's a great idea, right? It brings manufacturing back to the United States. It brings jobs back to the United States. We're using components from the United States, right? We're helping our country build it and keep all of it here, and rather than always waiting on it coming from another country. I don't see really the downside there. No, not at all.
Greg, what is your take on that? So, not a blanket tariff like a crude thing that's on everything that comes in. You want the mutual benefits of trade still. Like, there's some things that you want to import because it's not
Mhm.
worth it making it in America. It's better to make it somewhere else. But some of these high value industries, specifically in lighting, I think they could benefit from a little bit of protection. What do you think?
Well, anytime you do that and you say targeted, I think immediately people look at the loophole. What's targeted? And they look at it. It could be real general. I mean, so is a blanket tariff, right? But I mean, if they say everything that comes from this country is tariffed, that's probably easier to enforce than only targeted items. So I think that's my take is that I agree. I mean, that would be better than a blanket tariff, but I think it would be more difficult. So they just say, you know what, rather than the hassle, we're just going to do it all.
Hmm.
I,
Any
I would
expand? Yeah, go ahead,
I,
Spencer.
I'd say from a distributor standpoint, on a 2x4 hole in a T grid for years prior to LED, right? There was
Hmm.
always a cost. And that cost never truly went below a certain point. And
Hmm.
most at that time in the 90s and early 2000s, most of it was manufactured in the United States, right? It all came from the 4 or 5 companies that were manufacturing it: Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, things like that. The cost never got below, let's say, just random number $70 for that as a distributor. Today, because of flat panels, where are we at? $40? I mean, you could
I
probably get them
mean,
cheaper
Mike
if
had a
I
hot face
tried.
with somebody.
Yeah. So we've taken, because of the trade, right? We've taken and made that 2x4 hole more than 50% less than what it was 30 years ago. So when people are afraid of tariffs and the pricing going up, I say we're still paying 50% less than we were 30 years ago. So inflation really truly hasn't hit that hole in the ceiling.
yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a really interesting observation that, everyone's talking about inflation, but the cost of a 2x4 panel is way down actually,
Hmm.
from what it was before. But I think the other interesting aspect of that is, when you're talking about the fixtures made in the United States were lasting 40 or 50 years.
True.
Whereas these imported 2x4 panels are basically certified garbage, Spencer.
They have a 5-year warranty.
No, but there's nothing you can do with a lot of this stuff once it burns out. So
No, no.
that's an
Yeah,
interesting
it's
art.
throwaway.
That's right. And so we didn't at the beginning of the LED boom, there may have been that would have probably been a good time to make some tariffs on foreign products. It's like maybe targeted or maybe industry wide. So you could say when you say, Greg, like, oh, people are going to look for the loophole. I'm not talking about one. I'm talking about a targeted tariff would might be on the lighting industry.
Sure.
That could be the target.
Anything
Um,
lighting related, then okay.
yeah, I think that could be the target. Whereas maybe you don't want to tariff low voltage cable or I don't know, whatever, right? Something else that comes in that's a component within light fixtures. Um, Spencer, when prices rise to distributors, don't we make more money?
We absolutely do. So when I see them, I'm pretty excited about them, right? It means I get to charge a higher dollar price. And I'd say most of us all work on a cost plus model, right? I mean,
Hmm.
most distributors today are working on that. If our cost goes up, our margin stays the same, we make more money.
Exactly.
Not a not something I'm afraid of.
What about you, Greg?
I don't know. I'm a little like to me. I kind of get, and it's probably my issue, but I get stuck in a rut to some degree where I'm like, it's a 2x4 fixture. I can get it from 10 different places. If your price is this, I'll go to that place. And I'm not going to raise my price because I feel like the end user then could get it from someone else. But maybe I'm thinking wrong, and I got to get in Spencer's mode and just say it costs this, and we charge this. But I kind of have a flat number that I usually just do. I don't really think about our costs too much. I just say I know it's around here, but if it goes up 25%, then I gotta rethink that, and I don't want it to really. I just want to keep flowing. you know? But
But I would ask you this: your price that you say today is higher than the price you said 4 years ago, right? Or lower, maybe?
it's probably depending on what it is, probably lower. I mean,
Yeah,
on
it probably
average,
is
yeah,
lower, actually.
yeah, yeah.
But he doesn't
But
charge less.
I hope not.
I've stuck the price for the last 3 or so years, so our cost
Mhm,
has gone down. So maybe I'll make
mhm,
less. But I mean, so what is actually happening here? I don't, Mike. You know this. I don't read the news at all. Sorry, I'm on a podcast. I should probably be more informed. But what are we getting a 25% tariff? Is there what's happening? When's it happening? What's the story? Or
Okay,
Spencer, I don't care who answers.
you want me
Break it
to
down.
you want me to give you my 2 cents from Canada?
Yeah, let's
That's
hear
yeah,
that.
sure.
Okay, so when 3 or 4 weeks ago, when all this bluster and blowhard started about we're going to do tariffs and all this sort of stuff, and then during the presidential campaign in the United States, there was a lot of talk of I love tariffs. It's the best word in the English language and all this sort of stuff. Listen, I'm going to break it down. That was a political strategy. That's not Trump's economic strategy. Okay?
Huh?
I'm pretty sure Trump has people on his team that understand the mutual benefits of trade, especially with countries like Canada. Okay? That the trade between Canada and the United States is 99% mutually beneficial. There's no cheating going on. There's no intellectual property violations like you're more concerned with, countries that are not Canada, the United States. We have the rule of law. People can sue each other. This kind of stuff exists in both countries. So there's Americans would pay a lot more for products if they did this. Tariffs are an import tax. The American Revolution started because of tariffs. Okay, and so the import tax is on tea, right? So the tariffs are not good. But what happened was, and I think this is actually whether you like Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm going to tell you what his strategy was. Okay, so Donald Trump had a political strategy to convince. So he has a certain group of the population that's sold on him, whether that's 30% or whatever it is, that just are going to vote for Republicans no matter what. Whoever's up there, they're voting for them. Then there's a certain percentage of the population that's the intelligentsia and is really smart. Okay. And those people can identify a political strategy versus an actual strategy, like a political strategy versus an economic strategy for the United States. And this would be a really bad economic strategy for the United States. And Trump, I think, his team knows this. But he was able to convince a lot of Americans that were maybe on the edge or struggling. A lot of people are having financial problems right now after the pandemic. They can't buy a house, they can't feed their whatever, right? That's out there. That's legit out there. And I think what Donald Trump did was sell them on the idea that foreigners were going to pay for the right to do business with the United States. And I think that the perception of Americans was like, yeah, we're the biggest, we're the, like people that don't understand economics, no clue. We're like, yeah, Chinese people should pay us to sell their stuff here and pay my taxes for me. And I think that was the feeling in the sort of the American population that people should pay to have the right to do the business with the United States. Unfortunately, that's not how tariffs work. Americans would pay the tariffs, not foreigners. So, and then what you would be hoping for in that case is that manufacturing would return to the United States.
Yeah.
People would pay less taxes, and so the tariffs would be offset. But likely, largely, what would happen is really rich people would get a huge tax break, and working class and middle class Americans would get a couple $100 and pay more for everything. So it's not a good economic strategy with Canada and Mexico, really. I mean, targeted tariffs might work with Mexico and Canada, but it's not broadly. It's not a good economic strategy, and Americans would pay the tariffs, just like they didn't want to pay tariffs on tea, right? So that's how I think this was sold, and that's how I think we got here. It was a really smart, intelligent political strategy, but total crap. There's no actual intention to do maybe on China, some things here and there. They're already tariffing China anyway. But this idea that Donald Trump's going to tariff everyone, he's going to make Canada the 51st state, he's going to take over Greenland, he's taking back the Panama Canal, I'm renaming the Gulf of Mexico too, right? All of this is like political bluster to get attention to him, to let America know that I am putting America first. Whether or not these actual things go through or not are not even relevant to the American people all that much. What they want is to focus on their own country for once. They want to focus on their own. And so Trump's responding to that politically. And I think it's really smart, although it's deceptive. But politics is deceptive, Spencer Miles.
Yeah, no, and I think it's also a negotiating play, right? If he to do that to focus on America first, he wants Mexico and Canada to do certain things. What's the biggest stick he has? Tariffs. So you say it out
Oh,
there, you put it
yeah.
out there, and then what? Trudeau took 24 hours. He got in front of there, said he was going to tariff us, and then next
It
day, yeah, what do you
worked
want? I'll
worked
do it.
beautiful. Like it
Yeah,
worked so good for him. Like
mm,
what I'm talking, see, not the tariffs themselves. Like they could
yeah,
sit down and discuss, like economists could sit down and discuss the tariffs and how much or whatever. But that's not what this was about. It was a negotiating tactic. It was a political tactic. And whether you like the guy or hate the guy, he got the results he wanted. And Canada fell right into his trap. Like what a bunch of
yeah.
losers! Oh my God,
Pulled
my
the
head hit
liquor,
the table.
pulled liquor off the shelves.
It's like, what are you talking? First of all, the last time I checked, Ontario doesn't have a foreign affairs
Yeah.
department. So shut up, Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. What are you even talking about? You don't. You're not. You don't negotiate trade deals. You're a province. And then you got Trudeau. I mean, God, what a nightmare. But I think we're off the lighting here. But I like I said, I think a lot of people think that they don't recognize the difference between a political strategy and an economic strategy, between a
Exactly.
negotiating ploy, okay? And like the response when Trump said the 51st state, the obvious response to say is, nah, I don't think so, but I think Minnesota should be part of Canada. We should start a Join Canada movement in Minnesota. We love Minnesotans. They're just like Canadians. Like that's the obvious response to that. But of course, we don't have good leadership. So they're not thinking things through. They're not thinking strategically. And so we get into this situation where Trump is getting better deals in some respects for the American people. He's making them feel better in some for his supporters. He's making them feel better. So listen, it was an excellent political strategy for 2024 and early 2025. Um, Economically, really bad idea. But I don't think he's going
What
to do it anyway.
I think the opposite side is also using the scare tactic of, oh, you're going to pay more, right? They know that they're never going to go into place, or if they do, they'll be very small, right here, and they're targeted. So they use that fear as well to push the side of, this is bad. They're not. Nobody's out there with a straight mind just saying this is what they're doing, right? We're never going to pay the tariff. Like there's no common sense on either side. So
Yeah, so I think
we're at.
my question then for you two, and because I don't really think too much about this, but are you doing anything to prepare for it or plan for it, or are you just letting it ride until you see it?
Me, I know what it
Oh, you
is.
first, Mike.
This is
Yeah.
a political strategy, Greg.
So you're not doing anything with your business. Keep it
There's
rolling.
nothing to do.
Okay. I didn't think so.
There's nothing to do. I mean, the fact is that if Americans want to pay a lot more for products that come from Canada, like things like lumber, like okay, coal, all the other stuff we're hewers of wood and drawers of water up here. We're exporting gasoline and natural resources to the United States. You want to pay more for that? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but they're not. It's not going to make more oil in Texas or more trees in Oregon. Okay, so if you want to tariff that stuff, go for it. But I think that in terms of preparing for business, you just have to recognize, and I think Spencer's kind of on this wavelength with me, that you know you're all as a business people, we're better off recognizing what something is, Spencer, rather than reacting to political rhetoric.
But that political rhetoric is where I fear some manufacturers will use it to announce a price increase for whatever reason. It may not even be the tariff, But you can use that
Right.
today as an increase, right? If you wanted to, and you're sitting in one of these big companies, yeah, you know what? I want to increase my margins 4% this year. Easy ways of price increase, blame it on tariffs. So I
Hmm.
think I'm not doing anything. I'm more waiting to
Yeah.
see that because that's what I truly think will happen is you'll see some companies, and then once one or two does it, everybody else goes, "Hey, I should do that," right? So we still could
This
see a
has
price
happened.
increase.
Yeah, I mean, this happened before. What was it before? Rare earth or what was it? It was something where everybody kind of
Freight, everything,
made up a
yeah,
reason.
all
Well,
the
I don't
reasons.
remember what it
Yeah.
was, but it's like 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years that I feel like this has happened.
The rare
Like
earths.
normal.
Yeah, remember
Yeah,
the
the rare earth
rare earths?
shortage.
That was when the Icelandic volcano was going off. I remember the volcano and the rare earths. I bought a tractor trailer load of F-32 T8 41Ks.
Oh, they got you.
They got me.
Yeah.
The price went down the next day.
Ah.
Right.
Oh man, crazy! I had the
Uh,
tractor trailer sitting in the parking lot of my old office over there on Pharmacy around the corner here in Toronto. But anyway, so Greg, what do you think of price increases? You've often commented on price increases from manufacturers.
I say no. Not doing it. Like I don't. It's just not like you can say all the play the games you want, but we know what I mean. Like you had somebody come into your office and tell you what they. We don't have to advertise it on here, but ridiculously low pricing. I mean, you have a lot of imported stuff, so we have an idea what these guys are paying for it. So they can't come in and just mark it up because of a tariff. Maybe their price went up a few pennies and they're going to charge a few more dollars. I don't think so. I'll just go to somebody else. That's my opinion. Sorry, manufacturers, but
Hmm.
I think you know that by now.
Have you ever just sent the PO anyway with the old pricing on it and saw what happened?
Always,
Just yeah.
every
every
time.
day. How about you, Spencer? You're more like you get into brands. You're all fancy out there in Seattle. So what are you gonna do?
Well, when it's the big guys, you can't, right? They're not going to accept your PO. But
Yeah,
yeah, other people, absolutely, you do that, right? And see if they'll honor it. Why not?
Yeah.
yeah.
But I truly do believe we'll see by Q2, we'll see some price increase announcements. I
Yeah, I
just
think that's correct. I think some people will try to use it, but when you're talking about nail distributors, talking about the sharp money, buddy. You know what I
right.
mean? We're not like you. I mean, you can pull that off on some electrical guys and stuff like that don't care that much about lighting, but it's going to be more difficult with the nailed style distributor and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that it's something we can just. I don't think this is. I think this tariff thing. I think they should tariff things in the lighting industry. I think they should. We had that podcast, Greg, Asymmetric Warfare. That was the most popular podcast we ever did that we had to take down, which
Right.
described how accreditation agencies could be, it was tongue in cheek, but how you could use accreditation agencies in the United States to destroy the lighting industry in the United States. And, so we had that. But, I do think that there is intellectual property theft from the United States. I do think there is dumping of products into the United States. And I think, you have to look at trade partners, different kinds of trade partners differently. I just don't I think the blanket bluster and blowhard stuff is just political strategy. I don't think it's actually an economic strategy. And so I don't pay much attention to it for the first time like Greg Eric. I just ignored everything.
Nice work. Nice work.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. All right. Any final thoughts? Spencer Miles for today's show.
No, I think it's going to be a great 2025, right?
Amen to that. Satco, folks. That's right. SATCO.com. The gangsters of lighting, Greg Eric.
We talked about it at the beginning. We talked about it on the show. You know what they said? They just said, "Go about your business. Go sell lighting. Their price is
Yeah.
good through May. We'll talk then. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Love
And,
Satco.
and they got lots of lighting in a warehouse. Huge warehouses full of. But do you have lighting in a warehouse? Do you have light bulbs in a warehouse? Light fixtures in a warehouse? Spencer Miles got light fixtures in a warehouse,
Got a
light bulbs in
couple.
a warehouse. Greg Eric does. I do. That means you should join the top G's in lighting in the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. We got an amazing lighting controls course coming up. And it has 3 different tracks: distribution, installation, and design. So you can become a specialist in one of those 3 areas, and it's hands-on in Dallas. So go to the Nailed website. It's at Lightovation in Dallas. I think where is it here? It's the 16th, 17th, and 18th, plus some online stuff training before. You get a certification from Nailed. And of course, Don't be a chump, Spencer Miles. You're in Vegas May 4th to 8th. No?
I'll be there.
Oh,
I'll be
yeah.
there.
All you folks out there, thank you for listening. We love you guys. See you next time. Bye.